Hello and welcome to a brand new series here on the channel, Just Ride Bikes, and we're going to tackle the big topic of winter fitness, how to stay motivated during the winter off season and how to stay fit or get fitter. I'm joined by Dan Guest, a professional cycling coach, going to share some of his expert advice with us. So thanks for joining us today, Dan.
No problem, pleasure to be here.
So yeah, winter's a tough time for riding your bike. I guess, how do you tackle the off season? What's the best approach?
Well, I'm glad you said off season for a start, actually, because for a majority of riders, road riders, it is an off season and it should be treated as an off season. I think what a lot of people don't do is take an off season anymore.
Okay.
And we were chatting about this off camera before, that people will now race all year round. And actually, that's not healthy physically and it's not healthy mentally either, really. You need a break. So, for example, you can periodize your year into almost 3 days on, 1 day off, and then 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and run through the year and think you're getting enough rest. But actually, you just need to stop doing what you're doing for a period of time at the end of the race season. I mean, I'm talking summer race season, so road racing here. I'm a cross rider, so I am right in the middle of my race season at the moment. So my off season will come sort of February, March time. But irrespective, really, you just need to stop training for a bit and stop, not necessarily riding your bike, but chasing numbers, chasing intervals and things like that. There's still a requirement for a bit of intensity, and I'm sure we're going to kind of cover that in a bit. But if you don't stop, you just end up becoming stale, and you just end up doing the same thing over and over and remaining at the same level and never really having the rest and the refresh so that you can push to the next level, which is really what you want to be doing for the subsequent season, I'd say. I mean, I am focusing very much on people who race their bikes here. And for leisure riders, if you're happy just riding through, that's fine. I mean, if it makes you happy, keep going. But winter's a difficult time because of the weather and the light and all sorts of things. So there's merit in doing something different, definitely.
I guess a fear for a lot of people, myself personally, the idea of having an off season, having any time on the bike, you're going to lose fitness, and you try and retain what fitness you gained over the summer through the winter, or you try and build into the spring. So I guess there's a fear of losing fitness. Is that?
I don't think necessarily you should worry about losing fitness. I think there's a period where you can maintain your fitness, but not necessarily by doing the stuff that you've been doing all year. So I don't suggest that you don't ride a bike.
Okay.
I mean, you can still go out and ride your bike. I mean, we're on a channel called Just Ride Bikes here. I can't suggest you don't ride your bike.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there's definitely space in the plan to put something different in,
Okay.
to mix it up. And it's really important to do something different. I think the mental refresh is key. And so, I know this might be heresy, but a bit of running, some heavy weights, some gym work. I mean, I think it was it Jan Ullrich who used to say skinny skis, big legs, and
right, yeah.
and they did a lot of cross country skiing. But yeah, I mean, to do this just is going to prevent you becoming stale, and it's going to keep your cardiovascular system ticking along, and just keep things moving in the right direction in terms of allowing you to be fresher next season.
Okay, so about giving your mind and body a bit of a break from what you've been doing all summer, and some new kind of challenges like running or a bit of weight training or mountain biking perhaps, or doing something different.
Absolutely,
So
something different.
less chasing numbers, more riding for fun.
Yeah,
Still riding.
absolutely.
It makes it up a little bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons I love cyclocross is because I race short, sharp races. This is my race season, so I do short, sharp work on the turbo. It all works nicely, and my off season is the summer. So I can go touring on my bike, and we call it gravel riding, not gravel riding, bike packing these days. I'm too old for that. I still tour. Okay, so it's riding a bike, it's enjoying being outside, and it's maintaining your fitness without necessarily being absolutely focused on either weight loss or PBs or hitting numbers or FTP or all this good stuff that we tend to obsess about throughout the season. You just got to let it go for a bit. And realise that you're not going to lose fitness, and actually in the long run it'll be better for you.
I guess off-season idea is quite an old one almost, and you see the pros, when we're not pros, but we do emulate the pros in our training and riding approach, and they do race year round now, and the seasons are longer than they've ever been before. And with here in the UK, you can ride year round, you've got indoor training, so the ability to ride year round at a high level is easier than before perhaps, so the temptation to do it
much easier, especially with Zwift. And I'm a big fan of a huge fan of indoor training. I mean, it's key for cyclocross training for me. I'm a big fan of Zwift. I'm a big fan of Trainer Road. One of the problems that traps you can fall into with Zwift is that you can just keep racing.
Yeah.
And you can race every day if you wanted to. So
some people do, don't they?
Yeah, precisely. But actually, you never, if you race every day, if you put that intensity in every day, you never rested enough to work harder and make gains, which is, of course, what we really want to do. So you will end up racing, it's staleness, plateauing, stagnation, whatever you want to call it. You might well do it to a high standard, but it's really, really hard to get beyond that when you don't allow yourself to drop below that to progress.
So give your body a chance of rest before you build up again next season.
Yeah.
So if we've established the concept of an off-season is a good idea, and a sensible one for improving fitness into next year, how do you approach it on off-season? We're end of November now, so now's a good time to start kind of thinking about the next few months when it's going to be dark, wet and cold, and a bit of time of bike. What's the best approach?
Definitely. I mean, indoor training is critical. Let me go back a bit. For my clients, I would never ask them to train, in inverted commas, on the road when it's dark and wet and cold or icy, because I think that the risks you run trying to do that outweigh any potential benefits. Yeah. If there's training to be done in the winter, and we will get onto this because it's in my head to get onto it, the training to be done in the winter should be done on the turbo, and any sort of social rides, zone 2 stuff, which there's definitely a role for in the plan, should be done out on the roads. But when it's daylight, I don't think there's merit in trying to train in the dark. I mean, when it's cold and you're wrapped up in bib tights and jacket and gloves and buff and whatever, it's really hard to then go out and do threshold intervals. You shouldn't be doing it anyway, but it's just hard to motivate. Your whole body is just tight and your muscles are tight because they're cold. There's not time to try and, for me personally, to try and train on the road.
So don't be a hero.
I don't think so, no. When it's icy outside, you could write off your entire season slipping on a tiny patch of black ice and not even riding fast. You could break your pelvis and then that's the season gone. Yeah. And was it worth it? I'm not entirely sure.
So that comes down to being smart and sensible with when you do ride, and if the weather is bad, adjusting accordingly and being adaptable and flexible, and not, I have to go out, but the weather's bad, so.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, and that is, well, I don't want to do too much coaching advertising, but that's where a coach can help you to say, if you're concerned about conditions, you can say, well, I can give you a different session, or you don't need to do this, it's not vital. But I think also we'll go back to a little bit about cross training in inverted commas. It's just training off the bike. So there's merit in going to the gym. There's merit in going for a run, which is far more palatable if it's icy outside. It's still not great, but it's better to have a bit of a slip on the pavement than to fall off your bike at speed. And if mountain biking, perfect. Yeah. Get off-road, because at the end of the day, when you're off-road, you're kind of meant to get cold and dirty and muddy anyway, so you kind of accept that. And it's more fun, and actually the slithering about will give you great bike handling skills for the next season if your target is road riding, certainly. So there's loads of different stuff that is not necessarily doing your primary goal of training to road race, if that's what it is, or training to do a sportive or Gran Fondo or whatever, but there's lots of different stuff to be doing.
And can running and joining a gym, that sort of non-bike training, can actually benefit your on-bike fitness?
Very much so.
Okay.
Well, actually, that's not entirely true. It's one of the biggest mistakes that cyclists make, especially fit cyclists, is that cardiovascularly they are way better than their bodies are if they suddenly start to run.
Okay.
So if you're fit enough to go and bash out 10k, but you might not walk for 5 days afterwards. So you've got to be really, really careful. And this is a genuine point, actually, and it applies to both cycling and both running and any sort of weights work in the gym, that you must build into it slowly, because generally, we spent all summer on our bikes, we're just sort of in this position and that's it. And you start to do something different, and suddenly your muscles just object, and invariably you pick up an injury. There's an app called NHS Couch to 5K.
Okay, I've heard.
And we may as well be couch potatoes, for running purposes. And actually, you pop it onto an MP3 and listen to it when you're out, and it guides you through sort of walk, run. I wouldn't suggest people, if they're fit for riding, need to start at the beginning of that, but somewhere in the middle, there's a good balance of something in your ear that's going to just say walk for 500 meters, and then before you have to just pull a hamstring or something, and then you do make a mistake that turns your training backwards. That's the key. The most important thing about doing anything other than bike riding is that it doesn't injure you.
Yeah.
And that's vital.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do one run a year and then that's it.
It hurts too much. Yeah.
Because you think you're fit and I can do 200k on a bike and then 10k on a run should be fine, but
Savage.
it's
totally
brutal,
different.
Yeah. You can't free wheel, there's no easy running at all.
Yeah.
So whatever off bike kind of running, let's join a gym, I guess, going to the gym and doing running, treadmill, weights, so core fitness comes into that as well, Pilates, yoga, that sort of stuff as well, or?
Yeah, I think so. If it works for you. I mean, I tried to do yoga, but this is just my personal experience. I tried yoga, it wasn't great for me.
Okay.
Other people love it. They can't get enough of it, and that's fine. And this comes down to, don't hammer yourself into a rut that everyone else does. If you try something, it's not generally going to do you any harm, and if it works for you, it works for you.
Okay.
But if it doesn't work for you, don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not into that. I'll try something different.
Okay, yeah. So feel free to try different things, and if you like them, do more.
Yeah,
But don't overdo it.
But don't overdo it. And that actually reminds me about something about trying different things. I mean, and comes down to taking the break. When you take your break, it's really, really worth having a sort of, even if it's just with yourself, writing some points down that you think about your season, about a season review.
Okay.
If you don't keep a training diary, you probably have got in your head maybe a record on Strava of events you rode that went well, and what you should reflect on is maybe what you did a week or 2 weeks before that, even what you ate the night before if you can remember it that far back. But having a review of your own personal year is vital. Okay. It's a really important part of the off season, because then it might give you some steer about what you can do for the next season.
Okay.
And analysing your own strengths and weaknesses. Now, strengths and weaknesses is a funny thing, because people have strengths and weaknesses, definitely. But actually, when you really talk to them about it, their weaknesses are generally things they don't like doing.
Okay, yeah.
So you can, if you can embrace that and go, well, if someone doesn't like a session, that's probably quite a good thing, because if it's the right session for them, but they didn't like it, it's probably they need to do more of it. So yeah, season review, and that sets the tone for anything that you might want to do for the subsequent year. For racing cyclocross, when I race a race, I make notes on, this is super boring stuff, like tyre pressures, tyre choices, what I have, my prep before it, and over however many years. I mean, I've been racing my bike since I was 14, so what's that, 30 odd years? Oh my God.
It's all like in paper form, right? You've got a stack of diaries.
Not quite in paper form, it's on the computer. But yeah, it takes time to work out what worked for you as a warm-up, as a week or 2 week run into a key event. And if you've got that, I use an Excel spreadsheet now, but if you've got that on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet and you can refer back to it, it's quite a relief sometimes to just go, right, I see what worked there. Yeah. And for a different event, this didn't work. So you eventually evolve your processes down to a point where now I've got a big event coming up this weekend, and I'm in the run into it now. On Tuesday, I didn't have interview with Dave written down, but it's on there now. But yeah, so and then you can be comfortable with what you're doing in the run up to that event. But yeah, season review is really important as part of your off season, I think. Reflecting on
really sound advice. I don't think I've heard it before. Like really, everyone's so focused on the next thing, next session, the next race. You rarely take time to reflect on what you have done well or badly. And I guess you can't really focus on your goals for the off season or the year after until you really focus on what went wrong, what went well, and what you want to get out next year. I know a lot of people they want to train to get faster, but that doesn't mean anything. Like get faster how? Like time trial or climbing. So you need to focus on your strength weaknesses. You need to be able to build on those and work on
very much
areas.
So. You don't necessarily November, December for a road racing cyclist. November, December, you don't need to necessarily set your goals. So maybe the calendar's not even set in stone anyway now. But if you maintain your cardiovascular work by running or swimming or whatever, or just going out and enjoying riding your bike without necessarily hunting for numbers, you even take the head unit off. You can just ride your bike. And then focus on some strength training work in the gym, proper heavy strength training, and some core strength as well. And you can do that at home or in the gym, whatever. And that's just normally upper body stuff,
Okay,
really
yeah.
body weight work. It's general groundwork and preparation
Yeah.
for the next season. So you don't have to say, well, my season goal is July, so I should be doing X, Y, and Z in November, December. You don't necessarily need to do that.
Okay.
It's too far out anyway. You
Yeah.
need to do general stuff that's going to keep you strong and keep you, motivated because you're doing something different.
Okay, yeah.
But and then going to push you through into in January, February are always dark months, aren't they?
Yes.
For mentally and physically dark months. But yeah, and then you get into there and you can start to set your goals and refine what you're doing.
Okay. Is the idea of doing weights? I've heard that a lot. I've never really tried it myself. I mean, I guess a lot of cyclists try and keep the weight down, and winter obviously trying to keep the weight down, not eat too many mixed parties. But can doing weights be beneficial without bulking up too much and retain that sort of low weight you want for climbing in the summer?
If you'd asked me a year ago about doing heavy weights, I'd have said, what's the point?
Yeah.
And
But how's it have you go faster? Sort of
yeah, well, this is the thing. But I'm happy to say I was completely wrong about
Okay.
it. And maybe I'm really late to the party, but I know a lot of people who have been doing weights for a long time. Now watch this and go, I've been doing weights for ages, Dan, what on earth are you talking about? It always occurred to me that there's a finite amount of force that you can put through a pedal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's barely more than you take to stand up off a chair. So why would I go to the gym and do heavy weights? But actually, there's loads of science now that's showing that doing heavy weights is super beneficial for its conversion of muscle fibers to more endurance-focused muscle fibers. So you turn from the fast twitch stuff into slow twitch stuff, but the time to exhaustion increases, your threshold power increases, your max power increases. About the only thing it doesn't do is increase your VO2 max, but everything else it's beneficial for, and there's virtually no downside. Because it's just, in the initial phase, it's certainly just recruiting different muscle fibers or turning them into something that's more beneficial for an endurance sport. You don't gain any weight.
Yeah.
And you don't end up coming out of the gym looking like Arnie with loads of weight on. It's it just seems to be a win-win.
Okay, yeah. I guess the off-season is the time to do it, because in the summer you're racing, you haven't got time to recover from doing heavy weights, but in the winter you have got time because you're not doing as much volume.
Absolutely. And in fact, I mean, yeah, we can talk about this, I suppose now it kind of links in. There's merit in doing some high-intensity work in the winter.
Okay.
But your high-intensity work at this period could be your heavy weight session. And your heavy weight session should be hard enough that you're too sore to do anything else afterwards. So if you say, all right, your basic week is going to be 2 high-intensity sessions and 2 or 3 zone 2 sessions, one of them possibly being at the weekend, or 2 at the weekend where it's daylight you can get out on the road, and the other zone 2 sessions being on a turbo. For this period now, it's non-specific, it's heavy weights training, and that's your high-intensity work. And as you progress through November, December, January, February, and we want to put in more high-intensity intervals on the turbo trainer or on the road, you migrate out the weight sessions.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you keep the same 2 or 3 high-intensity sessions in the week, but they change their form and they become, I'm always whittering on about specificity. Anyone who talks to me about this, like, you train for what you want to do, and we will turn that stuff into some more specific work further down the line.
And can do weights benefit all cyclists, whether you're racing or you're a sportive cyclist, or just a leisure cyclist who wants to get faster and stronger?
From what I've read, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, it just there's the list of benefits for strength training seems to know no bounds.
Yeah.
I mean, doing the right sort of strength training is important. You might imagine that cycling is an endurance sport. I need to press down with my leg thousands of times during a bike ride. So surely I should be doing lightweight, lots of reps. And that used to be a school of thought, but it's not anymore. I mean, now we're talking about getting people down to doing 6 sets of 6 reps of 85-90% max single lift.
Yeah.
And this is kind of out of my comfort zone a little bit. I'm just sort of regurgitating what I've read and heard, but that's where the benefit lies. My best advice to people trying to go to the gym or wanting to start in the gym is start easy.
Yeah.
Start with high reps, low weight. High reps, low weight,
Yeah.
and then migrate it down so you can start to do the heavy weights, because you need to sort of build up the tendon ligament strength, and before you can start to load your body with this really big heavy weights. And also, if you go to a gym, I would hope that there will be someone there who could advise you on the best form for what you want to achieve. So speak to gym staff and say, I'm a cyclist. They'll probably know that anyway.
Yeah,
Little tiny skinny arms, and say, what do you suggest? Can you just keep an eye on me and make sure I'm doing this right? Because form is key.
Yeah.
As with anything, form on the bike is key. Form doing weights is key, because it's this try but perfect, practice makes perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you do practice in the wrong thing, you're never going to get it right.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really important to talk to people and see what they reckon. But I think heavy weights has got a big...
There you go. Weights, but get an expert advice before you go crunching 100 kilos or 3 times your body weight or something like Chris Hoy would do.
Yeah, exactly.
So another question I want to ask before we get more into the detail of off-season, like you talked about not riding with any sort of focus, but should you do an FTP test at the beginning of the season? And then how do you measure, are you trying to measure your performance through the winter, or are you just kind of stopping, like now, say, doing your sort of mix of training in the gym, and then get to spring and then kind of seeing where you're at in terms of benchmarking fitness, or you're not worried about that so much?
I would park FTP tests until early New Year, really.
God, thank God for that.
Well, the thing is, if you're doing weights, you're never going to be in the condition to do it. And if you're just free riding, then you're never going to be in the condition to do it.
Yeah.
And why put yourself under that pressure? It's not vital.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, if you really want to, you can do it. But but I think also it's really important in the off season, winter season, to allow yourself to put a few pounds on, to not be on peak form, to not be setting PBs, to not be winning races, because you don't want to. What's the point winning races in December? Well, maybe on Zwift, I don't know, but you want to set your key goals way off into the next season, so you don't need to do it now. And I think a lot of people have trouble letting that go. I've come off the top of this season and I'm absolutely pinging form. I need to keep that. Well, no, just relax, ride your bike, enjoy doing what you do. Remember why you ride a bike, because you enjoy it, hopefully, and just go out and do that. And you'll find that it's quite easy to pick that form back up when you start to refine and sharpen and get back into specific work. Yeah. So this is a time for just chilling out, really.
I think a lot of people do obsess about FTP. I mean, there's got a bit of buzzword the last few years, and it's probably a future video topic to get into. But don't worry about FTP. Just focus on riding when it's the weather's nice. Do some indoor training, a bit of gym work. Yeah. Running. If you can start with
that. I mean, and gain a couple of pounds, but not too many.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we have to talk about how to avoid the winter weight in another video, I think, especially with Christmas around the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, next question, Dan. Long, steady distance rides, or kind of keep it short and sharp and sweet? What's the best approach for winter riding?
Well, it depends. It always depends, doesn't it?
We all know pros go out and do 6 hours every day, so do we copy pros and do 6 hours?
No, I wouldn't suggest it. If you've got 30 hours a week to train, fine.
Okay, yeah.
You will pick up the required amount of intensity and duration somewhere within that 30 odd hours a week. Okay. But I don't recommend that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all busy. There's always stresses in our lives other than just being able to get on a bike and ride. We go on training camps for that. Yeah. And so I think the healthiest and most sensible approach is a mix. Okay. And we've talked about the weight training being the intensity in this period. If you don't want to join a gym, that's fine. Do a few turbo sessions, a couple of turbo sessions a week. It doesn't have to be on the ragged edge of VO2 max, anaerobic capacity stuff, just maybe sweet spot or threshold work, but keep a lid on it. It's not vital. Okay. You need the mental refresh in the off season to not be chasing numbers and chasing performance figures and stuff. And we've touched on that already, but why lose it? Why have to reacclimatise that level of effort come January when you do want to do it? So maybe even if you just did one session a week that was a little bit tougher on a turbo to keep your brain and your legs in gear for these these efforts when they're going to come when we need them, when we're trying to get into more specific work. But I think that there's definitely merit in longer zone 2 rides as well. I mean, they're important. They're important parts of your training program, of a balanced training program. So if you're busy during the week, there are turbo sessions, and then at the weekend try and fit 2, 3, 4 hours in, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
And it's not vital to go out if it's snowing or icy and stuff, and we talked about this and the risk of that. But if you can get out, get out.
Yeah.
But it's not a training ride per se. It's a Zone 2 ride. It's it could be a cafe ride.
Okay. Yeah.
And they don't have to be epic either, because you're gonna be wrapped up, and the longer you're out, the colder you are.
Yeah.
Would I recommend, say, 1 6-hour ride or 2 3-hour rides? Probably 2 3-hour rides.
Okay. Yeah.
Because at the end of 6 hours, you've spent 3 hours riding well, and 3 hours just being cold and tired.
Yeah.
And if you can ride Saturday and Sunday, or both, or 2 days in a week, whatever, and you can do 2 medium 2 to 3 hour rides, I think that's more beneficial, because you're going to be more focused, you're going to be warmer for longer, and you're just going to be able to, it's not a case of then finding somewhere to have food and carrying loads of water on the bike and stuff. And it's still important to eat and drink on the bike in the winter if you don't feel like it, just to maintain your ability to push the power. So there's a mix.
Okay. Yeah.
And at the end of the day as well, it's really easy to make riding a chore, especially if you're just on a turbo all the time. It's just constant grind on the turbo. And if the weekend ride is a social ride, a club ride, where you can just put along the wheels talking to people and go to a coffee shop, well, that's great. That's exactly what you want. Ride a bike for the reasons that you want to ride a bike, because you enjoy it. Absolutely, it still counts. Yeah, very much so. I mean, training's full of dogma, and this is where we always used to do it. But there's a reason there's a club ride at the weekend, and it's a sociable thing, and get out and enjoy the countryside and fresh air with your friends on the bike. It's perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Or off road, or whatever you want to do. Gravel ride. Mix it up. Keep it social. Keep it fun. Keep it interesting. Don't chase figures.
Yeah.
And that's the way you'll get through the winter, keeping your fitness and keeping your interest alive, which I think is really important. You need to get to, when you want to train hard, when you want to do the specific work for your race season, you want to be raring to go. Not like, I've been on a turbo all winter, can't be bothered now. And that's just where you don't want to be. So it's like you need to take a breath and just review the season, find out what went well, what went wrong, and then just make your way through this period, be ready to start again in the new year, sort of thing.
I know I've definitely personally fallen into the trap in the past of thinking I have to do like 4, 5, 6 hours on the bike and getting wrapped up and it being a chore and a slog and not really enjoying it, and like motivation to ride a bike for that long this time of year is tough, and thinking that's what pro to, I need to do a pro to. But you're saying it's okay to do a short ride, maybe 2 shorter rides, then do a turbo session.
Or 2 in the week,
Yeah.
And don't underestimate
quality over just kind of junk miles almost.
Yeah, it's called junk miles. It doesn't have to be junk miles. I mean, what's the training objective for a club ride? The training objective is going out, having a sociable session, realizing why you ride a bike, why you enjoy riding a bike. Well, that's a training benefit. That's a training objective in its own right. So they're not junk miles. Okay, we can sort of get around this with semantics, But don't underestimate the power of a Zone 2 turbo. I mean, deathly boring. But this is like Netflix time.
Okay. So how long? What, an hour, 2 hours? A film?
Whatever you feel like.
Okay. Yeah.
Not really, but I don't think turbo sessions need to be longer. A hard turbo session doesn't need to be longer than an hour, and a Zone 2 ride, hour 15, hour 30.
Okay.
When you're on the road, if you rode for an hour on the road and you reviewed your power file, and you were trying to do a Zone 2 ride, you might find 40 or 50 minutes in Zone 2, and the rest of it was freewheeling up to junctions and pottering about with traffic lights and stuff like that, and avoiding traffic. If you do an hour Zone 2 on the turbo, it's an hour Zone 2. It's constant muscle tension. There's never a moment when you're freewheeling. So it's actually more beneficial. I mean, you always hear sort of an hour on the turbo is worth a couple of hours on the road. It is really.
Okay, it's good quality.
It's really good quality.
No wastage at all.
And it's warmer ride turbo. And I put a telly on and watch a video. I mean, personally, I do Zone 2. Personally, I do Zone 2 training sessions within my season. So now, for example, today I might do, on a Tuesday, normally I would do 2 sessions. I'd do a hard session first thing in the morning, and then in the evening I would do a Zone 2 spin on the turbo. It's kind of recovery, kind of just a bit more. I quite like 2 sessions a day. That's for a different video, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But I will catch up on all the World Cup cyclocross races whilst I'm on the turbo.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a Zone 2 ride, which is kind of mindless, but it's still beneficial for me. And also I can learn a lot still. There's always learning to be done, isn't there? You watch professionals ride cyclocross, you can see what sort of lines they're using, what sort of tyres they're using, what sort of tyre pressures they're running, because they talk about that these days as well. So, I kind of like to multitask and learn a bit whilst I'm training. you can't do that if you're doing a hard session, but do an easy session and that's fine.
I like some of that.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about was I see a lot of people do. Is it Rapha Festive 500, isn't it?
Oh yes, I've never personally done that because I'm always too busy travelling around the country trying to see family.
Yeah, exactly.
But all these heroes out during the Christmas period.
The problem is, it's a nice idea. I'm probably going to get
Good marketing.
I'm probably going to get castigated for this, aren't I? But I often see people do the Rapha Festive 500 and then are ill for 2 weeks afterwards.
Okay.
Because they have not done 500. Is it 500k in a week?
Yeah.
They've not
pretty much
done that for the last 2 months. You get a massive training overload, and it doesn't matter that it's zone 2, because the training stress you might say training stress from 6 hours, 5 hours zone 2 ride is not enormous. Well, it's quite substantial, but add into that cold and wet and dark, and that just ramps it right up.
And so, alcohol.
Yes, absolutely. If you're just trying to ride off festive food, it all contributes.
Yeah.
So it all contributes to training stress, and you could end that week if you've not acclimatized to it and be doing 200, 300k weeks for the weeks preceding that. Then you do a 500k week. Your body just goes, I've had enough of this, and you shut down. You get cold and you get ill.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's not you don't get a cold from being cold. You get a cold because you run down.
Yeah.
And you've depleted your immune system because you just put your body under too much stress. So it's something that's just worth bearing in mind. You need to, if you want to do that, it's fine. It's a good goal, but you need to really look after yourself.
Yeah.
Really work on the recovery and good hydration and fueling and things, and try not to just make it a complete shock to the system. Because shocks to the system, your body just doesn't respond well to.
Yeah, you heard from Dan. Don't do the festive 500.
No.
The comments would be. But that's a good point. We haven't talked about it so far. It's like trying to avoid getting, any sort of illness. And I know personally, I really struggle from a bad immune system. I get colds this time of year. So staying healthy, because if you have a week or 2 weeks off a bike, you get a chest infection. That can blow your sort of winter out the window anyway, isn't it? So trying to avoid going too hard because you might weaken your immune system and then fall prey to a cold. So that's another sort of the balance of like stress and load, but recovery. Yeah. At the time of year.
Well, that's another reason that I'm not that massively into doing a hard session on the road in the winter. Yeah. Just because it just amplifies the training stress of the session. I mean, the training stress on the turbo is fine. It's kind of what it is because as long as you've got a fan, you're staying relatively cool. There's nothing different to normal there. But you try and do something hard on the road, cold air on the lungs, it's horrible. But yeah, it's difficult to look after yourself well enough if you're doing a lot of long, cold miles. Yeah. In terms of sort of diet, supplementation, or taking vitamin supplements, I've read loads of stuff that says yes, do, and loads of stuff that says no, don't. Yeah. I think that's kind of research you do for yourself, and if you feel things are working for you, you want to take a supplement, that's fine, but most people get what they need from their regular diet anyway, as long as it's not just mince pies.
That's diet, isn't it?
Kind of diet. I think actually the most important thing about illness is not to start back too soon if you do get ill. Okay. Because people are like, I'm ill. All right, you're ill. Take a week off. Yeah. Don't fret about it. But then they take a week off and they don't fret about it. But then they come back. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're 75, 80% right by the end of the week, and then they just go absolutely smashing back into it, and then they're ill again, and you just get this sort of cyclical sort of illness, wellness, and actually it would have been better off to go take a couple of weeks, and the second week maybe start some really super steady stuff on the turbo. Don't fret about it. There's loads of time. Because people get ill at this time of year.
That's me all over, that is. Yeah. Especially when you're Strava and you see your mates getting the margin, you're basically falling behind them.
Oh, Strava.
Trying to keep up.
Strava side.
The other downside for me when doing long winter rides is when I get home, I'm just ravenous and inhale the fridge. Where doing a short interval session with turbo doesn't increase appetite so much. I guess that's another benefit of not doing a big ride. You are trying to keep the weight off this time of year, unless I'm not fueling properly on the bike. But I just get starving hungry when I get home. And then it's cold as well.
Cold doesn't
help. And more food around this time of year.
Yeah, that's the thing. But
pies everywhere.
It's you can kind of fool yourself with that. So what I personally would do, I'm really bad at doing a fridge raid when I get back. and we don't have bread in the house for that reason, because otherwise it'd just be toast. And literally. And so what you can do is if you're doing a couple of hours, would you eat on a couple of hour ride?
Yeah, but it's harder when it's cold. You don't feel as thirsty or as hungry, but I try to,
Okay. I mean, if you're well fueled to start with, you perhaps don't need to eat too much on a 2 hour ride, but what you can do is have whatever food you're going to have not far from home.
Okay.
And maybe eat it an hour and then eat it an hour and then eat it 10 minutes out. Just have a banana 10 minutes out, or a bar, because what it means is that you're not completely just going to savage the fridge when you get through the door, because you're not completely starving.
Okay. So don't sit on the doorstep and eat your energy bars. Do it during the ride.
Yes, exactly. It's just about knowing yourself and knowing. I mean, you know that from of yourself, so you just need to work out a coping strategy to get around that. And maybe it is just having a snack before you get back to the house.
I think trying to kind of keep the weight down or lose weight even in the winter, because winter seems like the best time of year to try and lose any extra kilos you might have gathered over the summer. And try and be like race fit or whatever that even means.
One of the problems with taking an off season is taking the off season too seriously and putting like 20 pounds on.
Janoric.
Well, I wouldn't say, but exactly. Because what happens if you set yourself too far down the road of weight gain, it comes to a point after Christmas where you're trying to get it off.
Yeah. And
what you're trying to combine is hard training, because you're getting into specific work, and weight loss, and the two don't go hand in hand.
Okay,
You need fuel to train hard. So to then have fuel to train hard, but just a bit under that, because you want to kind of reduce your weight, that's a very hard balance to strike. So I think that the key at Christmas is saying to yourself, right, well, probably going to put a couple of pounds on.
Okay.
But
that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But let's not make it 20.
Okay.
And even if you were to use this period right now, sort of late November, early December, to try and lose a bit of weight, almost so you had some space in the bank before you hit Christmas period, and then so you come out the other side not like way overweight.
Yeah. Okay.
But as a cross rider, Christmas is a write-off anyway. We have the national championships in early New Year, and so Christmas is like...
That's horrible. Christmas and summer, can you, to make up for it?
But that's don't worry about it too much.
Okay.
I think is the message.
Okay, yeah. Some good advice there. Probably time to recap on what we've learned so far. So an off season is good. It's good for the mind. It's good for the body. Mix it up a bit. So running, weights, Pilates, yoga, mountain biking, cross riding. It's okay to eat a few mince pies, but not too many.
Precisely.
Weights are good.
Weights are good.
And the Festive 500 is bad. We're joking.
And take whatever extra stuff you do steady to start with. Don't dive into heavy weights. Don't dive into running. Don't dive into yoga, because you can do so much damage. So whatever you take, whatever you do, start steady. If it's going to be off the bike, start steady.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for your time, Dan.
No
and if you want to find out more about Dan and his services, his website linked down below, so go and check him out after the video. But that's all for now. Stay tuned for another video with Dan coming very soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that button down there. But that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching.